Ms. Nadia Samdin.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I stand in support of the recommendations in the White Paper. Over the years, Singapore has become a place of more equal opportunity for women thanks to policy efforts by the government, tireless advocacy by civil society champions, and the encouragement and partnership of male allies. Each generation could start to dream bigger. Yet, as we chase the aspirations that we rightfully deserve, we run into social barriers, and our own voices are often dimmed by societal expectations and mindsets that have not caught up with the times. At the workplace today, 3/4 of Singapore women between 25 and 64 years old are employed. But the types and trajectories of women's careers tend to differ significantly from that of men. There is no lack of women at entry level, but female representation tapers off in senior positions. By the boardroom, female representation stands at just 17.6% in our top 100 primary listed companies. Women are sometimes perceived as too much or bossy when they are assertive and decisive. These women are then seen as less likable or capable and hence less likely to rise through the ranks. Leadership is not just about the boardroom or in politics. But even stepping back from becoming a prefect in primary school, for example, for fear of being unliked for the same qualities which are viewed positively in boys, is not something that we want for our girls. Many fast-growing and well-paying jobs are in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. Yet, women account for only 1/3 of employed residents working in STEM. Just 58% of women who graduate with STEM qualifications go on to pursue related careers in this male-dominated space. Efforts like the mentoring programs and workshops by Tech for She, a group of working professionals and youth in tech, are an important part of the ecosystem. Institutes of higher learning as well have some programs to attract and retain female STEM talent, such as NTU's Women's at NTU initiative, which also supports early career female researchers. But a Europe-based Microsoft survey found that young girls become interested in STEM at about age 11 and may lose interest by age 15. By focusing women in STEM efforts at the tertiary level, are we too late? I look forward to hearing more about how STEM can be made even more accessible and relevant to girls in secondary or primary schools. Now, we must amplify the story of women in STEM. Recently, ground-up initiative, the Cadet Project, which believes that every woman deserves an equal chance at success and that tech can get her there, launched an exhibition featuring minority women from different ages and backgrounds in the tech industry. It sent a clear message that these spaces belong to people like us too, and success looks like this, the name of the exhibition. It is unfortunately still a reality that women face a childcare penalty. Mothers' wages typically stagnate and enter a permanently lowered trajectory, especially if they take time off to care for their children. Even when women don't become mothers, studies have shown that the mere perception of this possibility can lead them to being treated differently by co-workers. There are also times when women, affected by societal pressures and unwanted reminders of ticking biological clocks, hold ourselves back. For example, I shouldn't put myself out there for a promotion since I should be trying for a child ASAP after marriage. I am heartened to note that there are plans to facilitate greater women's representation in leadership roles, strengthen workplace fairness, and introduce new tripartite guidelines calling on employers to consider flexible work arrangements requests from employees fairly. Beyond guidelines, I also hope that societal norms will change as both parents become more actively involved in raising children. Other than embracing women as equal partners in the workplace, these shifts need to occur in our homes too. One focus on the white paper is on caregiving, as many of my colleagues have spoken about. As noted last year, there are approximately 210,000 caregivers in Singapore, most of whom are women aged 40 and above. During my MPS, I've encountered women who told me the difficulties in securing migrant domestic worker help during COVID-19 meant that they, as mothers, wives, sisters, aunties, and daughters, had to make the tough choice to leave their jobs to ensure an elderly parent or child is looked after after, while it wasn't even in the realm of contemplation that their brothers or husbands would do it instead. Many mothers also shared how the expectation always fell to them to take emergency leave in the case of an ill child. Now, emotional labor aside, caregivers' income decreases by 63% on average, reducing their ability to save for retirement. I applaud the proposal to enhance the home caregiving grant, which will now provide up to $400 in relief per month. At the same time, I believe there is room for the scheme to be expanded to better reflect the true value of unpaid caregiving. In Hawaii, for example, the government grants up to $70 a day to unpaid primary caregivers of senior relatives to alleviate caregiving burdens. As Singapore's population ages and care burdens increase, such models may be examined further, including how we may potentially finance them. I hope that the criteria which a care recipient of the HCG must meet can be expanded as well, as some seniors fall just shy of the 3 ADL criteria but face other serious challenges that require dedicated care and similar expenses. I also look forward to hearing more about how the household services scheme can be broadened and made more accessible in a timely manner to meet demand. Who will care for our caregivers in the old age? Them who have given up hopes and dreams of their own once the care recipients are no longer around. I'm glad to hear the efforts elaborated by Parliamentary Secretary Rahayu Mazam earlier on this front. I would like to briefly touch on a point that is close to the hearts of many women in my generation, on setting up a home. When you get to your 20s, you are asked at every festive season, wedding and funeral, when are you getting married? After you get married, you are asked, when are you having children? When you have one child, you are asked, why are you stopping at one? And when you have many children, you are asked, why do you have so many? But it is not always within the control of the woman, and such comments can be very hurtful, reminders of what they hope for but have not come true. I hope that society can consider women who remain single because of personal decisions, women who have made the tough choice to leave relationships, women who can't have kids because of infertility challenges, either of their own or of their partner, or women who need to focus on careers because they are the only child who can look after their parents. I hope that in considering what can make a woman whole, we look at who she is and not just who she could be relative to someone else, like a wife or a mother. I hope we can, in the words of Mr. Ong Ye Kung earlier, consider the unconscious remarks that we make. On this note, I appreciate the steps we are taking on elective egg freezing. With this, women can have the time and space to make choices instead of rushing headlong into starting a family. This benefits not only them, but the children they may welcome into their lives in a planned, responsible manner. As a member of this House who is a woman under 35 years old, it is something my peers and I have often discussed, and I know that there are women slightly older who wish that they have this option too. This is a topic that has prompted much discussion, and I hope that we can continue to have these important conversations in a way that is mindful of different beliefs and ultimately for greater progress. With flexible work arrangements, leadership cultivation, this white paper proposes actions that benefit many white-collar working women. However, any discussion on gender equality is incomplete without considering the experiences of women from lower-income backgrounds. With limited resources, it can be all the more difficult for these women to have a voice and a choice despite their courage and best efforts. The proposed solution for lower-income women we often hear is, why don't you get a job? Well, many jobs have irregular hours due to overtime, while most childcare services have fixed daytime hours, making it more difficult to viably care for children without additional expenses. And although childcare subsidies do exist, the burden of proving the work hours falls onto them and sometimes are difficult to substantiate, especially for self-employed mothers. For some families, work may inevitably reduce comcare or increase HDB rental fees, such that they are in a financially worse position than should she stay at home. I'm happy to hear that Kids Start and flexible childminding support will be expanded. Yet these women face other barriers like aspirational poverty or lower social capital. As Comlink scales up, I hope that there can also be better integrated programs catered for women to achieve personal growth and empowerment beyond family and child-centric efforts. Additionally, specific groups of women need more support. In this House, I've called for more to be done for families of offenders. Generally, there are 10 times more men than women in our penal population. For many male offenders in prison, they leave behind wives, sisters, mothers, daughters outside to wait and face the world. We must reach out more proactively to these women and their families to provide support from the point of incarceration to release and reintegration, and not leave this assistance to chance house visits by our teams on the ground or rely on referral pathways in the male offenders' hands. Such initiatives could make a world of difference to the women whose struggles and aspirations may otherwise be overlooked. I recently chatted with two young women who co-founded their first business. They have worked with large tech companies, both in Singapore and overseas, and shared with me some responses they got when they introduced themselves as minority women founders, identifiers that they were proud of. One response was, "Why do you victimize yourself that way?" The double-barreled identifiers by race and gender were somewhat affronting to some people. But why should minority and woman mean victim or less than? Why shouldn't minority and woman mean strong and capable? Madam Deputy Speaker, in Malay, please. Dalam ucapan saya tadi, saya telah menyentuh bagaimana Singapura sejak dahulu lagi telah mengorak langkah dan membuka peluang bagi wanita untuk mencapai aspirasi kita. Kertas putih bagi pembangunan wanita Singapura menunjukkan komitmen pemerintah untuk mengambil tindakan yang tegas untuk menyokong kaum wanita memenuhi aspirasi kita. Namun, saya harap kita tidak hanya sandarkan kepada undang-undang sahaja. Sebagai sebuah masyarakat, kita juga harus memainkan peranan. Baru-baru ini, kita telah melihat kejadian di mana komen-komen yang berbau misoginis atau tinjauan lucah yang menyenaraikan nama-nama asatiza kita telah mencemarkan martabat wanita. Masyarakat telah bersatu untuk mengecam perbuatan-perbuatan tersebut dan peristiwa seperti ini telah menggalak lebih banyak perbincangan tentang pentingnya untuk kita menghormati dan memartabatkan kaum wanita kita. Sudahkah kita mengubah fikiran kita terhadap peranan ibu, kakak, adik atau isteri kita di rumah? Baru-baru ini, sebuah kajian yang dijalankan oleh Persatuan Pemudi Islam Singapura, PPIS, telah mencerminkan sesuatu kebimbangan yang dihadapi oleh para wanita Melayu Singapura. Mereka menghadapi dilema untuk mengimbang aspirasi mereka di kerja dan juga di rumah. Kajian itu juga berharap lebih banyak usaha dapat dilaksanakan untuk mengatasi stereotip negatif yang boleh merumitkan lagi usaha wanita Melayu kita untuk mendaki tangga kejayaan. Harapan saya adalah untuk melihat lebih ramai wanita Melayu Islam kita diberikan peluang untuk sandang jawatan sebagai ketua syarikat dan pemimpin bagi badan-badan kemasyarakatan. Dengan ini, ia dapat membenarkan wanita lain untuk menanam impian yang lebih besar supaya wanita lain, khususnya anak-anak muda kita, berani untuk mencuba dan mencapai aspirasi yang mereka harapkan. Ultimately, the conversation on Singapore's women development is for all of us. The policies in this white paper do not grant women opportunities and rights at the expense of men. They seek to improve on our current system, a society in which all contributions are recognized and respected. In this Singapore, men and women can play to their strengths without labels. In my own generation, I see how equitable access to opportunities have catapulted women into lives that our mothers and grandmothers could only dream of. I know that all of us in this House, men and women parliamentarians alike, will work even harder such that Singapore will be fairer and more inclusive for the generations of young women to come. To our dear girls, don't let anyone or anything hold you back. Madam Deputy Speaker, I support the White Paper and look forward to the collective action that we will take as a society together.